Are you a role player or a rules lawyer when it comes to tabletop role-playing games? Oftentimes, we're presented with the idea that by being one, by necessity, you are not allowed to be the other. And there's a strange caricature that if you're interested in role-playing, then clearly your focus is on embodying your character, the storytelling aspect, and immersive experience that rules are often cited to stand in the way of. On the opposite end, if you're a rules lawyer, or maybe a rules master is a more appropriate word here, but the common trope is that your focus is on the rules, right? You just stick to the specifics of the mechanics and prioritize rules mastery and gamifying rather than the role-playing aspect of a tabletop role-playing game. I'm not sure where this came from, but this common misconception that focusing too much on the rules can stifle creativity and role-playing is just ridiculous. A lot of words and wasted effort has come from dungeon masters and content creators that suggest a dungeon master's ruling is more important than the rules of the system that they're playing. Personally, I don't agree with this, and I find that this mentality is detrimental to the gaming experience for both rules lawyers and role players. So, where is the common ground? Why is system mastery crucial to the role player experience, and why are those that are too focused on the game missing out on the bigger picture? Well, let's try to answer those questions. First, let's tackle the misconception that a robust rule set, and by proxy, system mastery, is detrimental to the role-playing experience. A level of system mastery gives all players confidence. Knowing the rules gives you the ability to make bold and creative decisions during gameplay. When you're not constantly second-guessing, or even worse, forcing the dungeon master to persistently make rulings, then you can clearly focus more on your character's actions and the immersive experience at the table. Everybody has played in a game where the dungeon master is constantly having to pause the action to look up rules, oftentimes happening at the most dramatic moments so they don't cheap out on the success or failure of whatever it is that you're trying to do. For me, this is one of the biggest killers of immersion. The constant start and stop nature just gets in the way of the game. Rules mastery empowers players. When everyone at the table understands the mechanics, gameplay becomes much smoother and way more collaborative. Instead of being unsure of what you can do or having to wait until you get DM clarification, you can make informed decisions that drive the game forward and contribute overall to a better and more engaged campaign. When you know the rules, you understand the boundaries of the game and by proxy, the game setting, and can think creatively within these bounds. This is especially important in complex games where the rules can be intricate and sometimes ambiguous. AD&D gets a lot of flack for being an overly complex and incomprehensible system, but the reality is that with a bit of system mastery and understanding, it is probably the most satisfying addition of D&D to play. I want to expand on something I said a few moments ago, that when you know the rules, you understand the boundaries of the game and by proxy the game setting. I may just be blowing this out of proportion, but I feel like the way rule sets define the setting is often overlooked. There's this incorrect idea these days that so long as you like the system that you're playing, you can basically make it fit all genres and tones. This idea is especially prevalent in 5th edition D&D, where people take a game that is clearly about killing monsters in a fantasy setting and then try to apply the rules to a cosmic horror campaign similar to Call of Cthulhu. The system defining the tone of the game and setting is incredibly important to role players. A well-defined rule set provides consistency in how your actions are resolved with regards to the setting that allows you to remain immersed in your campaign. People often talk about verisimilitude and list things like consistent world building, detailed descriptions, and realistic consequences as the driving factors for it. And it is true, these things are important, but often overlooked is just how these systems' rules allow for verisimilitude. Consider that the game you're playing isn't D&D, and you're not trying to emulate an Earth-like medieval fantasy world, but rather you're trying to create immersion in a world full of foreign and alien-like experiences. Descriptions and world building are nice, but if it's difficult to grasp certain concepts that we've never experienced, even with an active imagination, then we need something else to hold onto and ground this experience. A comprehensive and well-defined rule set ensures that at the very least, the game world operates consistently. When players understand the rules that govern the game's mechanics, then they can reliably predict the outcomes of their actions, which is, to me, the key to maintaining the internal logic of the game world and by consequence, the verisimilitude, even when the descriptions and world building are alien and unknown to me. Let's talk about rules-light systems for a second. You see it all the time. People love to harp on and claim that as a role player, what you really want is a lighter rule system. One that allows for more creative freedom without any of the annoying rules in the way. I cannot comprehend the number of times I've seen people ask for advice only to be recommended that they play something else entirely. The majority of times, these suggestions coming from rules-light systems that allow for what people say is true creative expression. Now, rules-light systems are not without their benefits, to be clear. Typically, because of the simplicity of the rule set, they are incredibly accessible and quick to jump right into playing. However, in my experience, these systems are just not good for long-term campaigns. The lack of depth and progression options these systems tend to provide seems to be the exact things that kill long-term campaign ability. With fewer rules and mechanics to engage with, I find that players often find it much harder to invest deeply in the game world and their characters. The insufficient framework of rules provides minimal guidance on how to handle various or unique situations, leaving much up to the discretion of the dungeon master or the player's ability to argue, which can in turn be directly detrimental to the speed of resolution that these systems tend to boast about in the first place. In my experience, again, this leads to a ton of inconsistencies in the gameplay and a general disinterest in the game after a number of sessions. Basically, what I'm saying is that while they're quick to get into, they tend to wear their welcome out just as fast, and systems with robust rule sets just have more staying power for the long term. Now, I'd hope that I wouldn't have to explain why role-playing and tabletop role-playing games matters, but there are surprisingly a lot of people out there that basically just play these games much like you would a board game. So I think instead of trying to explain why role-playing is fun or any of that, I'm going to try to appeal to those people that have more of a gamifying and logical focused mind. Instead of talking about the emotional impact or just how amazing character immersion feels, and it is amazing, we'll talk about how role-playing puts the rules into context. So for one, role-playing turns the abstract mechanics and rules into a living, breathing experience. Instead of just seeing your character's stats or skills and abilities as numbers and words on a page, they instead exist as the defining elements of the character. A fighter with high strength isn't just 2 attacks per round and +4 to the hit or damage. Instead, if you embrace role-playing, not only do you get that stuff, but you can develop unique personality traits or motivations that add depth to every mechanical action and break away from simply just playing the game in its most optimal form. While rules provide the framework of the mechanical experience, role-playing encourages thinking beyond the mechanics in order to find creative solutions to problems. This leads to more engaging and unexpected outcomes which, in my opinion, enrich the overall game experience. A good example of this is a rogue character or something. Instead of simply relying on the mechanical stealth and combat roles to succeed, you could instead engage with the role-playing aspect and use your own cunning to try and talk your way out of a situation. And if your dungeon master is any good, they can then turn that conversation into something further that adds to the greater game experience. To me, these encounters are much more memorable and impactful on the campaign than just rolling my stealth check and hoping for a high number. There are a lot more benefits to role-playing, or maybe benefits isn't the right word, but role-playing offers quite a lot to the tabletop experience. However, that's probably the subject of another video since I'm not necessarily trying to convince rules-focused players on the merits of role-playing. Alright, well, I think that about sums it up. Clearly to me, both are essential to the tabletop gaming experience, and it's not really about choosing one over the other, but blending both aspects to enhance our games. Just because you might be interested in one more than the other, don't forget about the other half of the game and use it to enhance the experience that you prefer, rather than abandoning it simply because on the surface level it doesn't seem necessary to the experience that you prefer. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, as well as share your thoughts in the comment section. I'm interested in what people have to say about their own experiences in the tabletop gaming space. Also, if you're interested, feel free to join my community Discord where we discuss things like this as well as other topics surrounding the hobby. The link will be in the description below. Thanks.